welcome to Lawyer of the Week. Lawyer of the Week is creating a global community of lawyers, solicitors, and their support to inform and to encourage each other. Hi, my name is Pamela Deneuve, and I help successful and focused lawyers to achieve peak performance and to create their legacy. Please join us for the interview with a peak performing lawyer this week. Hi, my name is Pamela Deneuve, and I'd like to welcome you to Lawyer of the Week. We're very pleased this week to have our distinguished guest, Robert Johnson. And let me tell you a little bit about Robert. Robert is a social engineer committed to using innovation to address community issues. He's also a lawpreneur, combining his insights from business and law to create original and profitable enterprises. With over 25 years in global management, risk assessment, crisis management, and dispute resolution, he utilizes his experience to address economic development issues in underserved communities worldwide. Mr. Johnson is the managing partner of the Solomon Law Group, a social enterprise management consulting firm that provides business management, individual, community, and organizational transformation. He provides business brokerage, merger and acquisition services, franchise consulting, and franchise development through his firm, Transworld Business Advisors of Chicago. Additionally, Robert is a partner and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Quintarios Prieto, Wood and Boyer, PA. Did I pronounce that right, Robert?
Quintarios Prieto, Wood and Boyer.
Yes, the largest minority and women-owned law firm in the country. Previously, Mr. Johnson was the Franchise Relationship Officer and Ombudsman for McDonald's Corporation Central Division. He was an advocate for the McDonald's systems, providing leadership to strengthen relationship between McDonald's and its owner-operators. He was also responsible for resolving conflicts between the company and its owner-operators and represented the Black McDonald's owners-operators. Prior to assuming the role as Franchise Relationship Officer, Robert was responsible for the management of McDonald's $55 million a year workers' compensation program for all the domestic corporately owned restaurants. Mr. Johnson created the department in 2006 and implemented programs that saved the corporation over $60 million. It goes on, Mr. Johnson is an expert at risk assessment and reduction. He led McDonald's tort litigation practice group and provided advice and counsel to senior management relative to cost reduction, strategies, crisis management, customer relationships, brand protection, and media in the US, Europe, Australia, Latin America, Canada, and Asia. As a complement to his legal business and experience, Mr. Johnson is skilled in addressing diversity and social responsibility issues. Mr. Johnson was a member of the McDonald Diversity and Inclusion faculty and traveled the country to address diversity issues and to teach Black career development and intercultural learning, and continues this work through the Solomon Group. Mr. Johnson sits on the board of Legal Prep Academy and is the executive director of Minority In-House Counsel Association. He is a recipient of the 2009 United Business Leaders of Color Award, the 2008 Council on Legal Education Opportunity Legacy Diversity Award, and the 2006 National Eagle Leadership Institute, and it goes on. Robert, so glad to have you here. Thank you for being our Lawyer of the Week.
Quite an honor. Thank you. I appreciate it, Pamela.
Well, we feel very honored to have you and so happy to hear about all the wonderful work you're doing about diversity, which is a really important issue now. But let's start at the beginning of our Lawyer of the Week questions. What made you decide to become a lawyer?
Well, the reason that I chose to become a lawyer had a lot to do with my background and my upbringing in a little small town called Fort Heights, which is right outside of Chicago. And as you and I was speaking about earlier, it was at the time and probably still is listed as one of the poorest suburbs in the nation. So I saw a lot of things that I thought were unfair, and I thought saw a lot of disparity. And I always believed that lawyers could make change and that they could bring about positive changes in society. And that was really the impetus for me wanting to become a lawyer, is that I wanted to be able to help people. So that was really where the idea started. And that's really my view of what lawyers should be. If I could quote Charles Hamilton Houston, he talked about, as a lawyer, you're either a social engineer or a social parasite. So I chose the former rather than the latter, and wanted to really try to do all that I could to change those things that I thought needed to be improved upon.
That's just really wonderful to hear, Robert. And just could you walk me through a little bit? I mean, I'm seeing, I know the area because I grew up in a neighboring community. And how did you, being in this community, like what are the things that you had to do to rise up to become a lawyer so that you could make the difference in the world that you're making? What are some of the things you had to overcome or do?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, as I said, Fort Heights, although it's only about 30 miles away from probably one of the richest neighborhoods in America, the Gold Coast of Chicago, it is truly the tale of two cities. I think poverty and drugs and crime were quite prevalent in that community. But I must honestly say, one of the things that I think, two of the things actually that helped me rise out of that community, first was family, and then my friends. I had an amazing group of friends. There were about 5 of us that came out of that community that we're still tight and very close to this day. And we talk about those times, and actually that's where the term lawpreneur came from, is that the 5 of us started our first business probably when we were like 11 or 12 years old, teenagers. I'll never forget, there was this late night infomercial by Carlton Sheets, one of those uh, no money down real estate programs, and you buy these tapes and they'll teach you how to buy real estate without any money. And the 5 of us, scraped up $300 to buy these tapes, and we got them in the mail, and we listened to them and quickly realized that you do need money down to buy real estate, just like what Carlton Sheets talked about. But that really was, I think, the beginning, that we all wanted to do better, and we supported each other and we protected each other. So we were able to navigate through some of the things that unfortunately served as traps for others and prevented them from being successful. I don't think that we were any smarter or any or our parents loved us more than anyone else's parents in that community. But we had each other for support, and we were fortunate, and we were able to zig when some others zagged, unfortunately, and were able to navigate through the community.
Wow. What comes to my mind is like you formed your own mastermind group.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, and we still support each other in that same way. They say iron sharpens iron.
Yeah,
So, we were able to really push each other in a friendly but still competitive way, and brought out the best in each other.
that's wonderful. Well, what will you say are your biggest wins and your biggest challenges?
I think the biggest win for me from a professional standpoint was during my stint at McDonald's, being able to, first of all, there aren't many African Americans that work for a Fortune 500 company,
Hmm.
particularly as a lawyer. So to be a corporate lawyer there for 14 years, first of all, to have them as a client and then get asked by the company to come and join the law department, and then to be able to have some success there, and to also do something that most lawyers aren't given the opportunity to do, to be an entrepreneur within the legal department and create a department that ultimately saved the company, as you alluded to earlier, over $60 million, and become a profit center, and then be able to take that and go over to the business side and have success on that side. I think from a sheer just being able to check off the boxes of things that I wanted to do,
Mhm.
that probably on paper is the greatest thing that I have been able to accomplish. But it's not the thing I'm the most proud of. Ironically, I'm actually proud of what I'm doing now, which is I created an economic model called the social determinants of wealth,
Mm.
which is taking all of the things that I learned at McDonald's around franchising, particularly when I worked as the company liaison to the Black McDonald's owner operators, and saw that franchising has created more minority millionaires, and McDonald's has created more minority millionaires than any other company in the world, and creating an economic model that I'm implementing here in Chicago to try to uh, address the wealth disparity that exists in underserved communities by creating entrepreneurs through franchising and developing the businesses that exist in those communities and the franchises to provide economic opportunity for those who came from conditions similar to my own.
Wow, that's really those are amazing, amazing accomplishments. And the fact that this isn't, your accomplishment, it's like your accomplishment that you are helping others to break through the glass ceilings or to move past their barriers and giving them knowledge that they otherwise would not have opportunity to learn. That's
I
really
think,
great.
I think particularly now, given the climate that we have in this country,
Hmm.
um, where there is so much division and so much malice and so much such adversarial politics and dialogue and attitudes. I think that being able to try to provide solutions that are um, nonpartisan and that are really focused on the needs of the people, because
Hmm.
there's a growing gap. There's a growing gap between the have and have-nots. It's not really a gap. It's a chasm.
Yeah.
Uh, and there are many folks that are being left behind, and in many respects, through no fault of their own,
Hmm.
looking for opportunity. And I think that if again, as a lawyer, someone who's been privileged to learn about a lot of programs, processes, and options that others may not have learned or had access to be able to share that knowledge, I think is a responsibility that we all have. And I'm just trying to do my part to contribute to that knowledge base that helps other folks be successful.
That's wonderful. Now, what would you say are your biggest challenges as you try to proceed forward with those goals?
The biggest challenge, I think, is unfortunately, and this is par for the course for lawyers, but it's par for the course for society as well. And that's the status quo. A lot of folks, as lawyers, we're taught precedent, which is really just upholding the status quo, making small incremental changes that on something that was done previously. And unfortunately, our society works in that way to a large extent as well, and that it is not flexible and is not really geared towards trying to make massive change in a short amount of time. And that's why the term disruption is such an appropriate term for what I think needs to happen in our society. It's happened in some industries, but it really needs to happen in a lot of other places, and particularly in these underserved communities. What is the disruptive model that we can use to change the trajectory of the lives and the situations of folks who have been left behind? We've seen it in a couple of industries where, like Uber and Airbnb, where industries have just been upended in a matter of years.
Hmm.
What if we could do the same thing as it relates to poverty, as it relates to literacy, as it relates to the lack of access to healthcare or food insecurity or homelessness? Where are the folks that are using those same type of disruptive tactics to address societal issues? So that's the challenge that I want to dedicate the latter half of my life to, is to try to be a disruptor in those things that truly need to be disrupted. We may not have need ride share. We may not have need Airbnb. Who knows? The world may not have necessarily been better off if those industries hadn't been disrupted. But I truly believe the world will be better off if we could disrupt homelessness, if we can disrupt poverty, if we can disrupt illiteracy, if we can disrupt food insecurity. I mean, in a world as rich as ours, there's over 8 million children that die every year because of food insecurity. That's something like 16,000 kids a day.
Yeah.
So there are things that if we have our collective will, and we have the right people who are looking to innovate around these things, I think we can make a difference, and we can save lives, and we can really be each other's keeper, which I think is what we're called upon. What I try to advocate is that we all are stewards of humanity. We all are entrusted with each other, and have a responsibility to each other. But unfortunately, that is a challenge, is that we have become so myopic in our views and so focused on our own needs and our own wants that we've forgotten our responsibility to each other.
Right. So really, truthfully, you're talking about interrupting a way of thinking that that people are like deeply asleep, going about their normal way of living.
Absolutely. And
So,
I'm a socialist. I'm not advocating socialism or anything in that regard, but I think that there is a way to do good and do well by doing good. And if we look at the problem from that perspective and motivate people to do well by doing good, it could disrupt some of these issues that we have persistently faced over the decades.
mm-hmm. So now tell me, why is diversity? I think you've answered a little bit of it, but why is diversity in the legal profession very important to you?
And that's a passion of mine because, as I said, I became a lawyer because of the inequities that I saw that exist. And I think justice is not blind. It is reflective of the folks that are making the laws, that are, enforcing the laws, that are writing the laws, that are arguing on behalf of those who are impacted by laws. So diversity is important because it makes for better decisions. It makes for better outcomes. It is something that I think is necessary in our profession. We are the least diverse of the professions. We lag doctors, people in finance, you name it. Lawyers are the least diverse and have the greatest impact on everyone's life. Obviously doctors play a role, but you don't get sick every day.
Right.
Laws touch you from the moment you're born to the day that you die and every moment in between. So our ability to shape those laws and to impact, the fabric of our society is unique as it relates to other professions. So unfortunately, the lack of diversity creates outcomes that I think are less than desirable, and don't create the best outcomes. So it is my goal to try to increase diversity within our profession. Again, for as long as I'm here, I will advocate for the inclusion of different perspectives, different peoples, and different ideas that can make this world a better place.
What legacy do you want to leave in your law practice?
The legacy that I would love to leave in my law practice is the creation of a new generation of lawyers that are focused on social justice. We had the civil rights movement, which had its successes. I think the next area of focus, not to pivot away from civil rights, but to also include social justice and social entrepreneurship, creating a cadre of lawyers who are focused on, as I said earlier, doing good by doing well by doing good, that they make a living and they seek to make a living. And I think that's very consistent with the way millennials approach, the way they approach ideas about what needs to happen in our society. That they're very focused on trying to make a positive contribution. And I think that if I could have any role in creating greater avenues for them to be able to get engaged civically and socially, and from an entrepreneurial standpoint, to again address some of these societal ills that are unnecessary and have long lived past their prime, to address and come up with innovative solutions to tackle those problems. That would be the greatest legacy that I think I could possibly leave, if I could create folks that have that fire and that desire to disrupt those areas in our society that need to be disrupted.
Yes, and I'd have to say you've already done a lot just by your existence and just by your coming up, I want to say coming up from the ashes and creating what you've created, through McDonald's and through your law firm and through your own firm. You've already created something great, and I know you're only going to continue to do so.
Yeah, we started this program, or I should say this movement here in Chicago that we call Unleash and Launch. We launched it back in March, where our goal was, through using the social determinants of wealth model, to unleash the talents and passions and dreams of 1,000 Black entrepreneurs and launch 1,000 Black businesses over the next 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's the other legacy, or the manifestation of that legacy, is that we're trying to unleash the talents of 1,000 Black social entrepreneurs and unleash 1,000 Black, or launch 1,000 Black social enterprises that can address some of these issues.
Wow, that's really amazing. That's really ambitious. So, Robert, can you name one thing you do to manage your stress levels?
Oh, absolutely. I have become a student of meditation lately. Actually, there's a book by Russell Simmons, who many may know is really heavy into meditation and yoga. And I read his book, Meditation Made Simple, and downloaded the app. And every day I start my day with at least 10 minutes of mindfulness. And I think it truly has helped, and it's something that I encourage, and I've actually tried to encourage other friends to, and my son in particular, to practice it as well, because I definitely think it has a ton of benefits, both physical, mental, and spiritual. Well, the three, both physical, mental, and spiritual. So that's really that, and exercising on a regular basis, trying to hit the gym, and then traveling when I can, not just for work, but to sit in front of a body of water, if at all, and let the sun. I'm a worshiper of the sun, so if I can incorporate those three things on a fairly regular basis, then that's what keeps me sane.
Wonderful. Well, Robert, thank you so much for being our Lawyer of the Week. And you're very inspirational to all of us, and keep up the good work. And to our audience out there, we appreciate your joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Lawyer of the Week. As always, I encourage and support each one of you to achieve your own peak performance, move your law practice to the next level, and create your own legacy. I love to read your comments about how you achieve peak performance in your law practice below.